Dive into a world of fictional stories where secrets unravel and mysteries deepen with each twist and turn. Buckle up for a journey of intrigue and suspense that you won't want to miss. If you enjoy what you see, consider subscribing and giving us a like. It helps more than you know. Stick around until the end for some shocking revelations you'll be talking about long after. Born Emily Townsend in 1989, she was raised in a middle-class household in Hartford, Connecticut. Her father, Thomas, a dedicated high school history teacher, and her mother, Margaret, a compassionate nurse, provided a nurturing environment. Emily, the younger of two siblings, always looked up to her older brother, Mark, who was 3 years her senior. Displaying remarkable intelligence and ambition from a young age, Emily thrived academically, particularly excelling in English and debate. Her teachers frequently praised her ability to dissect complex issues and express her ideas with clarity. These abilities would later become invaluable in her career and in solving a life-altering mystery. Despite a generally happy childhood, Emily faced significant challenges. At 14, the tumultuous divorce of her parents deeply affected her, instilling a profound fear of betrayal and fueling her resolve to establish a stable, loving family. She channeled her emotions into her studies, finding solace and success in academics. This dedication led to her admission into Yale University with a partial scholarship, where she pursued a major in communications and a minor in psychology, intrigued by the dynamics of human interaction. During her sophomore year, she encountered John Harrison at a university social event. John, a business administration major in his senior year, was instantly captivated by Emily's intellect and engaging personality. Their relationship flourished rapidly, characterized by mutual respect and shared ambitions. By her graduation, Emily and John were deeply committed, marrying 2 years later in a picturesque ceremony celebrated by loved ones from both families. Following university, Emily ventured into the marketing sector, where she quickly made her mark. By 30, she had ascended to a marketing executive role at a leading advertising agency in Hartford. Her insightful understanding of consumer psychology and her ability to devise effective campaigns were pivotal to her success. Even amidst her professional achievements, Emily remained focused on her lifelong aspiration to nurture a family. Emily and John had long envisioned starting a family, but as time passed, they faced the heartache of infertility. This challenge, while exhausting, seemingly drew them closer. The early years of Emily and John's marriage were filled with excitement and mutual aspirations. They purchased their first home, a quaint 4-bedroom colonial, dreaming of filling it with the laughter of children. Their weekends buzzed with activity, remodeling their home, visiting local farmers markets, and hosting dinner parties for their expanding circle of friends. John's role as a management consultant required him to travel frequently, often for extended periods. Initially, Emily struggled with the separations, but gradually adapted, filling her days with her marketing projects, yoga sessions, and volunteering at a nearby animal shelter. When John was in town, they savored their time together, enjoying romantic getaways, or relaxing at home with a bottle of wine and a favorite film. Friends often remarked on their enduring affection, noting how they seamlessly completed each other's sentences, shared private jokes, and maintained a unified front, making them a model couple in their community. However, as the years passed, subtle shifts began to surface in their relationship. John's business trips grew more frequent and prolonged. When home, he seemed perpetually distracted, often buried in his phone or excusing himself for calls. Emily attributed this change to his work-related stress and strove to be supportive. The first significant rift emerged during their 10th wedding anniversary. John, usually attentive to such occasions, completely forgot the date. He was away and only called late that evening after being reminded by Emily. His apologetic tone did little to mask his distraction. This oversight, seemingly minor, sowed a seed of doubt in Emily's mind, unaware that it was the beginning of a complex web of suspicion and betrayal. The defining moment that would forever alter Emily's life unfolded on a drizzly Tuesday afternoon in April. She had left work early to prepare for an upcoming dinner party. While searching for a particular serving platter in the guest room closet, Emily stumbled upon an unfamiliar shoebox. Driven by curiosity, she opened it, only to discover contents that chilled her to the bone. Inside lay a second cell phone, a stack of birthday and Father's Day cards signed Daddy in childish script, and several photos of John with a woman and 2 young children, none of whom Emily recognized. Her hands, trembling, Emily scrutinized the photos more closely. They captured John, radiating happiness, his arms wrapped around an attractive brunette, with a boy around 7 and a girl approximately 5 smiling at the camera. The settings were homely, clearly a residential backdrop, not a hotel or holiday locale. Emily's thoughts raced. Was this a concealed past relationship of John's? The recent dates on the Father's Day cards, particularly one from the previous year, dismissed that possibility. A harsh reality dawned on her. John had another family. Stunned, Emily activated the second phone, which was still operational. It contained hundreds of texts between John and a woman named Claire, filled with affectionate exchanges about mundane family matters, school events, medical appointments, and vacation plans. Each message felt like a betrayal slicing through her heart. Armed with names and snippets from their conversations, Emily turned to the internet for answers. She quickly located Claire Morgan on social media. Although her profile was mostly private, the public details confirmed Emily's worst fears, including check-ins at various locations in Columbus, Ohio, coinciding with John's supposed business trips. Claire's social media posts, though vague, often celebrated her love for her family, meticulously avoiding any direct references to a husband. As the stark reality dawned, Emily was engulfed by a storm of emotions: shock, betrayal, anger, and profound sorrow. The life she believed she had with John, the man she thought she knew, was nothing but a meticulously crafted facade. She spent hours examining John's credit card statements, identifying frequent yet inexplicable charges in Columbus, which he had always dismissed as business-related expenses. Even more startling was her discovery of a hidden bank account she had never known about, showing regular transfers to an account in Claire's name. As darkness enveloped her home, Emily sat in the shadowy living room, surrounded by stark proofs of John's duplicity. The space that had once been her refuge now seemed contaminated, every cherished memory now under scrutiny. Faced with these revelations, Emily was at a crossroads. Should she confront John immediately, seek legal counsel, or attempt to contact Claire? Unbeknownst to her, this discovery was merely the beginning of a much larger unraveling. The decisions she was poised to make would trigger a chain of events leading to tragic outcomes for several individuals entangled in this web of deceit. Delving further into her investigation, Emily uncovered more about Claire Morgan, a 34-year-old pediatric nurse at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus. Claire and John had met 8 years earlier during his prolonged consulting assignment in Columbus. Their rapid romance quickly led to Claire's pregnancy. At that time, John, already married to Emily for 4 years, chose to lead a double life instead of revealing the truth to either woman. He fabricated a story for Claire, claiming his job necessitated frequent travel between Columbus and Hartford to justify his prolonged absences. To sustain this lie, he even purchased a modest home in a Columbus suburb under an LLC, crafting a part-time residence for his second family. Their children, Ethan and Lily, grew up believing John's elaborate tales of being a pilot to rationalize his frequent disappearances to Claire and the kids. John, portrayed as a dedicated family man, strove to remain involved despite his demanding career. Emily found herself compulsively contrasting her life with Claire's. While she and John resided in a spacious, elegantly furnished home, Claire and the children lived in a smaller, more intimate dwelling. While Emily and John frequented high-profile corporate events, Claire's social media depicted a world filled with children's birthday celebrations, Little League matches, and casual family barbecues. The stark contrast between the dual lives John led was striking. In Emily's world, he was the suave, ambitious executive, appearing in family photos at charity events and on lavish holidays. Conversely, images from his life with Claire showed a more down-to-earth John, dressed casually, engaging in simple pleasures like building sandcastles or pushing swings. Emily grappled with the notion that perhaps this simpler, more genuine lifestyle reflected the real John more accurately than the one she shared with him. Was their entire marriage merely a charade? The John she knew had always seemed to prefer a life of sophistication over domestic simplicity. Had she ever truly known him? As she delved deeper into the existence of John's hidden family, Emily's emotions oscillated between anger, sorrow, and an odd fascination. She pondered over Claire's role. Was she merely another victim of John's deceit, or had she been aware of Emily all along? What of the children, innocent bystanders whose lives were founded on falsehoods? The more Emily discovered, the more she realized that confronting John would extend beyond her own pain and betrayal. Any decision she made would profoundly impact the lives of 2 innocent children. The burden of this truth weighed heavily on her, rendering the decision of her next steps overwhelmingly complex. After days of agonizing contemplation, Emily resolved that she could no longer perpetuate the falsehood of their union. Emily knew she needed answers directly from John. She chose a Friday evening, when he was expected back from a business trip, to confront him. The day was fraught with anxiety for Emily as she rehearsed her questions and braced herself for any conceivable reaction. When John entered at 7 p.m., his usual warm smile wavered upon seeing Emily sitting stiffly on the living room couch. Evidence spread out before her, including the incriminating shoebox. His complexion paled, a stark sign that his carefully constructed world was on the brink of collapse. "John, we need to talk," Emily said, her voice quivering slightly, despite her best efforts to stay composed. "I know about Claire and the kids. I know everything." For a moment, John froze in the doorway, his expression one of shock and dread. Then, almost instinctively, he shifted into a defensive stance. He approached Emily, hands outstretched, soothingly. "Sweetheart, I can explain. Please, it's not what it seems," he implored. But Emily's patience had evaporated. Built-up doubts, reinforced by days of painful certainty, left her incensed. She unleashed a barrage of questions and accusations, her voice escalating with each query. "How long has this been going on? How could you do this to us? Did you ever truly love me, or was our whole marriage a facade?" John's replies were a tangled mess of excuses and apologies. He hadn't planned for it to happen. He felt cornered. He loved both his families, albeit differently. He had always meant to end things with Claire, but then the children were born. He pleaded his sorrow, but his remorse soon faded as the confrontation intensified. When Emily hinted at revealing everything to Claire, John's demeanor shifted ominously. His voice hardened, warning Emily to consider her next steps carefully. In that instant, Emily saw a side of John she had never known, a stranger, skilled in deceit, capable of maintaining a facade for years. For the first time, alongside her heartbreak, she felt a genuine flicker of fear. The confrontation came to a sudden halt when John, his expression a turbulent mix of rage and fear, stormed out of their house. Emily heard the car engine roar to life and the screech of tires as he sped away. She was left in the deafening silence of their once shared home, amidst the wreckage of their shattered life. In the initial shock, Emily felt an overwhelming numbness. She wandered through the house in a daze, oscillating between uncontrollable crying and unsettling periods of calm. She called in sick to work, spending days lost in a haze, barely eating or sleeping, and incessantly replaying their final confrontation. John did not return. Initially, Emily thought he might have gone to Claire, either to warn her or to choose his other life over the one with her. But as days stretched on with no sign of him, no charges on their joint credit cards, no activity on his primary cell phone, a new anxiety took hold. Where was John? What was he planning? The man she had faced was not the John she had known. His potential actions were now unpredictable. As the silence extended, Emily's worry morphed into fear. She had told no one about her discovery or the confrontation, but with John missing and her life crumbling, she realized she couldn't bear the burden of this secret alone. Unbeknownst to her, deciding to confide in someone would trigger a series of events with unimaginably severe repercussions. 5 days post-confrontation, with still no word from John, Emily broke her silence. She contacted John's younger sister, Anne, the family member she felt most connected to. Over coffee, in a secluded cafe, Emily shared the entire ordeal. Anne listened in stunned silence, her complexion turning pale as the magnitude of John's deceit unfolded. Anne's shock swiftly shifted to decisiveness. Concerned about John's disappearance, she persuaded Emily to report it to the police. Despite her reservations about the potential public fallout, Emily agreed. The police responded with urgency. Detective Robert Turner, a seasoned officer known for his acumen in unraveling complex cases, was assigned to lead the investigation. He listened intently to Emily's detailed account, noting the revelation of John's second family as a significant concern. Claire, devastated by the unfolding events, was initially uncooperative, but the progression of the investigation left her with no choice but to engage with the authorities. Claire's statement depicted John as a devoted partner and father, someone who never gave any indication of leading a double life. However, as Detective Turner delved deeper into the case, inconsistencies in John's narrative began surfacing. Financial records revealed large sums of money being shuffled in ways that contradicted his declared earnings. His colleagues also noted discrepancies, as some of John's alleged business trips did not correspond with the company's official records. The facade of John as a trustworthy, successful businessman was slowly dismantled by evidence suggesting fraud and deception. 2 weeks into the investigation, a potential lead emerged when John's car was discovered abandoned in a parking garage at Bradley International Airport. Security footage captured him entering the garage, yet no footage showed him exiting, deepening the mystery surrounding his whereabouts. Had John fled the country? Was he in hiding, hoping the scandal would subside? Or had something more sinister happened to him? The ongoing investigation began to take its toll on both Emily and Claire. Emily, previously a vibrant socialite, withdrew from public life, only leaving her home when necessary. Claire, striving to maintain stability for her children, took a leave of absence from her job, overwhelmed by the mounting pressure. The repercussions of Emily's discovery had dramatically changed numerous lives, and as the search for John continued, the situation was poised to take an even darker turn. As weeks turned into months, Detective Turner and his team meticulously examined every facet of John's life. Their findings painted a portrait of a man who had been teetering on the brink of exposure for years, not only juggling 2 families but also entangled in a complex web of financial deceit. Insights from John's colleagues, including Simon Reeves, a fellow consultant, revealed more anomalies. Reeves recounted instances when John had supposedly been at client meetings which, according to Reeves, never occurred. Reeves had once admired John for his knack for securing new business, but now he questioned the legitimacy of those clients. Further investigation by forensic accountants uncovered an extensive Ponzi scheme orchestrated by John using his professional influence to forge fake consulting agreements. Using funds from new investors to pay off older ones, while secretly diverting large sums for his personal use, John managed to sustain 2 households and a lavish lifestyle. As the extent of John's fraudulent schemes surfaced, many of his former friends and associates were thrust into the spotlight, their connections to him suddenly suspect. Emily, still grappling with the fallout from her shattered marriage, now faced the daunting reality that her life with John might have been financed by illicit activities. She spent countless hours consulting with attorneys to gauge her potential legal liabilities. Although she had been oblivious to John's criminal undertakings, the fear that her comfortable existence might have been underpinned by stolen funds was overwhelming. In Columbus, Claire was confronting her own version of the nightmare. The stable life she had believed she shared with John was disintegrating. Repeatedly questioned by the police, every past interaction she had with John was dissected for clues. For Claire, the most painful aspect was explaining to Jacob and Emily the grim realities surrounding their father's actions, including the distressing coverage on the news. As the investigation advanced, a more precise timeline of John's last known actions took shape. Security footage at the airport parking garage, where his abandoned car was found, recorded him entering on the night he vanished, carrying a large duffel bag. However, there was no evidence of him leaving the garage or heading towards the airport terminals. A meticulous search of the garage, especially in areas beyond the reach of surveillance cameras, led to a harrowing find. Tucked in a rarely used stairwell, John's duffel bag was discovered containing his wallet, phone, and a handwritten note. The contents of the note sent shockwaves through everyone connected to the case. In it, John admitted to his fraudulent schemes and expressed deep regret for the anguish he had inflicted upon both his families. He described feeling ensnared by his own deceptions, constantly haunted by the fear of being exposed. The note concluded with a haunting message. "By the time you read this, I'll be gone. It's better this way. I'm sorry for everything." This discovery pivoted the focus of the investigation. Was the note indicative of suicide? Had John ended his own life? And if so, where was his body? Or was this final message just another deceit in a life riddled with lies? Possibly a ploy to mislead investigators while he fled to start anew elsewhere? As the investigation into John Thompson's disappearance transitioned into a new phase, the aftermath of his actions continued to manifest. Lives were shattered, fortunes were lost, and reputations were tarnished. Yet, the full scope of the damage was still unfolding, and disturbingly, the body count was set to increase. 3 months post-disappearance, the case took a grim and unexpected turn with the death of Simon Reeves, John's colleague who had previously shed light on discrepancies in John's work claims. Detective Turner, now heading a task force specifically assembled for the Thompson case and its related investigations, approached the scene with a heightened sense of scrutiny. The circumstances of Reeves's death, initially deemed an accidental fall, appeared suspicious upon closer inspection. Known as a moderate drinker, the discovery of a powerful, non-prescribed sedative in Reeves's system during the forensic examination raised immediate alarms. As the inquiry into Reeves's death intensified, a sinister theory emerged. Had someone eliminated Reeves to keep him silent about further details of John's fraudulent schemes? The timing was ominously pertinent. Reeves had been scheduled to deliver an expanded statement to the police the following day. The news of Reeves's death sent shockwaves through the community. Those linked to John, whether through previous police interviews or upcoming ones, became increasingly apprehensive, fearing for their own safety. What had started as a scandalous story of dual lives had escalated into a lethal saga. Emily, already besieged by anxiety and depression from John's vanishing, felt a surge of terror. Though she barely knew Reeves, the violent nature of his death was horrifying. She responded by fortifying her home with a new security system and minimized her outings. In Columbus, Claire was confronted with her own fears, primarily for the safety of her children. The thought that her family could be endangered due to their ties to John was nearly too much to bear. She pondered relocating and starting anew, but the ongoing probe tethered her to her current life. Further investigation into Reeves's demise revealed he had been compiling an extensive dossier on John's activities. Although his home office had been ransacked prior to police arrival, the intruders missed a concealed safe. Inside, detectives uncovered documents hinting that John's fraudulent dealings were even more extensive than believed, potentially linked to offshore accounts and organized crime networks. The death of Simon Reeves marked a crucial juncture in the case, transforming what was initially an investigation into infidelity and financial fraud into a full-fledged murder probe. As tensions escalated and fear permeated, it was clear that Simon Reeves's death would not be the last tragic consequence of John Thompson's deceptive schemes. In the ensuing weeks, a palpable sense of dread enveloped all those linked to the John Thompson case. Despite increased police patrols around Claire and her children's residence, anxiety remained high. Threats started to emerge ominously. Emily received anonymous calls at night, marked by unsettling heavy breathing. Claire discovered her car vandalized, the word liar etched deeply into the paintwork. John's former boss at the consulting firm shockingly received a package containing a dead rat, escalating the sense of threat. The investigation into Reeves's death brought more questions than answers. Neighborhood surveillance captured a nondescript van parked near Reeves's home on the night of his death, but the license plate was obscured. Neighbor interviews mentioned a mysterious stranger inquiring about Reeves shortly before his demise, though descriptions were inconsistent and unclear. The intensifying pressure began to crack the composure of those closest to the investigation. Anne, John's sister, suffered a public breakdown in a supermarket, lashing out at a cashier she believed was scrutinizing her. Claire's eldest, Jacob, faced suspension from school after clashing with a peer who mocked him about his absent father. Detective Turner and his team tirelessly pursued every lead, convinced that the solution to the mystery hinged on unearthing missing segments of John's financial dealings. Each time they neared what felt like a breakthrough, another dead end thwarted their progress. The case had turned into a tinderbox, with tensions escalating daily, teetering on the brink of explosion. That critical spark arrived with another harrowing death. 6 weeks following Simon Reeves's murder, tragedy struck even closer to home. Anne Thompson, John's younger sister, who had initially urged Emily to report to the police, was found murdered in her apartment. This time, the crime scene bore no semblance of an accident. Anne had been brutally strangled, her residence thoroughly ransacked. The sheer violence of the crime left even experienced detectives profoundly shaken. The motive behind the killer's ransacking of Anne's apartment was evident. They had been searching for something specific. Whether they succeeded remained an enigma. Emily felt the news of Anne's death as a physical assault. Anne had been her steadfast supporter through this ordeal, the only person who fully grasped the intricate emotions Emily was battling. Now, she too had fallen victim to the chaos John had triggered. Upon hearing the grim news, Claire made the wrenching decision to relocate her children to her parents' home in rural Ohio. The threat was too imminent, too palpable, and her maternal instincts compelled her to safeguard her children at all costs. As detectives delved deeper into Anne's murder, a chilling hypothesis emerged. Anne had been assembling her own investigation into John's deceit, driven by disbelief, anger, and a quest for understanding how her brother could sustain such an intricate facade. Had her findings made her a target? Investigators discovered that Anne's laptop was missing, and her cloud storage had been meticulously wiped clean hours before her estimated time of death. Whatever Anne had unearthed, someone had taken extreme measures to suppress it. The consecutive deaths of Simon Reeves and Anne sent tremors through the law enforcement community, prompting the involvement of the FBI, given the case's scope now clearly exceeded local jurisdiction. Agent Carla Mendez, seasoned in high-profile white-collar crime cases, was assigned alongside Detective Turner. As Mendez examined the tangled web of evidence, she discerned patterns hinting at something far more expansive than mere individual malfeasance by John. The intricate financial fraud, the murders disguised as accidents, all signs pointed to the machinations of organized crime. Was John merely out of his depth with nefarious entities, or was he more intricately entwined in criminal endeavors than previously thought? With 2 murders now directly connected to the investigation, the urgency to locate John, whether deceased or alive, escalated dramatically. Yet, the man who had adeptly concealed a double life for years remained just as elusive in disappearance. As the investigation progressed into a daunting new phase, those impacted by John's actions awaited in trepidation, pondering who might next fall prey. A breakthrough emerged unexpectedly when a hiker exploring a state park about 50 miles from Millbrook discovered an abandoned cabin. Inside, signs of recent habitation were evident, along with a wall plastered with newspaper clippings, a potentially crucial clue in unraveling the enduring mystery. When the hiker stumbled upon the unsettling scene inside the cabin, he immediately alerted the police. Detective Turner and Agent Mendez, upon arriving at the location, sensed they were on the verge of a crucial discovery. Hidden beneath a loose floorboard, they found a laptop later confirmed to belong to Ann Thompson, marking the first significant breakthrough in weeks. As forensic teams meticulously examined the cabin and its vicinity, Emily received a harrowing phone call that sent shivers down her spine. It was John. His voice was hoarse and nearly unrecognizable, conveying urgency and despair. He pleaded with her to meet him, promising to explain everything. Driven by a desperate quest for closure, Emily reluctantly agreed, despite her reservations. The designated meeting spot was an abandoned factory on the town's outskirts. With her heart racing, Emily ventured into the crumbling structure. She had discreetly informed Detective Turner of the meeting, knowing that law enforcement had encircled the area, yet she couldn't shake off a profound sense of vulnerability. John appeared from the shadows, a mere shadow of the man she once loved. His appearance was haggard, his eyes were hollow, his once meticulous grooming now neglected and disheveled. For a moment, they both remained silent, the air thick with the gravity of their shared past and recent betrayals. John then began to unravel his tale, the words spilling out in a desperate flow. He confessed to entangling with a criminal syndicate years ago, using his consultancy as a facade for laundering money. Initially drawn by the allure of easy money and the thrill, he soon found himself too deep to escape. His voice cracked as he described his genuine affection for Claire and the children, emphasizing his efforts to shield them from his illicit activities and provide them with the normalcy he felt he could never offer Emily. As he spoke, Emily grappled with a torrent of emotions: anger, pity, revulsion, and traces of the love that once bound them. Yet, predominantly, she felt an overwhelming sadness for the lives shattered by John's actions. His demeanor suddenly shifted as he mentioned Anne and Simon Reeves, his eyes flickering with paranoia. He expressed a frenetic belief that he was being pursued, that no place was safe anymore. Emily, alarmed by his erratic behavior, attempted to soothe him and persuade him to surrender. Just as she reached out to him, the distant wail of police sirens punctuated the tense atmosphere, signaling an impending climax to their confrontation. As the sirens wailed closer, John, overwhelmed by despair and cornered, drew a gun, a detail Emily had shockingly missed until that harrowing moment. Her hands instinctively raised in a plea, she tried to reason with him, but John was beyond any rational thought. He brandished the weapon erratically, his voice breaking as he declared he couldn't face imprisonment. What unfolded next would replay in Emily's nightmares for years, each moment etched in excruciating slow motion. As the police stormed in, their shouts for John to disarm echoed through the factory. In a final twist of torment, John turned the gun on himself, The sharp crack of the gunshot shattered the tense silence. In the ensuing chaos, as officers swarmed and paramedics surged forward, Emily stood immobilized, witnessing the tragic culmination of John Thompson's saga. In the aftermath of the factory showdown, the depths of John Thompson's criminal undertakings were fully unearthed. The laptop recovered from the cabin revealed a tangled network of financial fraud, money laundering, and ties to organized crime that had thrived for over a decade. John survived the suicide attempt, but was left comatose, trapped in an unresponsive state, thereby eluding the possibility of a trial or confronting the devastation he wrought. For many, his fate was seen as a cruel mockery of justice. The exposure of the criminal syndicate John had entangled with led to multiple arrests, unraveling a broader conspiracy. It became evident that Simon Reeves and Anne had been eliminated by members of this crime ring, desperate to prevent their operations from coming to light. With her life irreversibly changed, Emily made the difficult decision to leave Millbrook, seeking solace and a new beginning elsewhere. Claire and her children chose to remain in Ohio, endeavoring to piece together a semblance of normalcy far from the public gaze, their lives slowly stitching back together amidst the ruins left by John's deceit.